I see our guest, Alexandra Loves, is in the green room, getting ready to come join us. Let's see if we can. I hope she's back there. Our American Gumption elves are taking good care of her, giving her snacks and drinks, making sure she's happy. She is on the West Coast, so she had to get up early, but she told me she's an early riser, so it doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and welcome Alexandra to the show. Good morning, Alexandra. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us and getting up early this morning. 7 o'clock where you are at, or a little after.
Yeah. I've been up since 6:30.
All righty. Well, hey, Alexandra, the way this works when I have a first-time guest is I read a little bio about who they are, just a quick introduction, and then I have a theme, a first-time guest theme that we play. Anytime a person comes the first time to the show, we want to welcome them with a special song. And then if you come back ever again in the future, you'll never hear this again. So you're going to enjoy that, I hope.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so let me read your bio. Alexandra Lewis, or AlexandraLoves.com, was a third culture kid born and raised in Saudi Arabia. As she grew into adulthood, she struggled with her identity that was imposed upon her by now living in the United States, living in accordance to societal conditionings. She kept silent. She lost confidence in her instincts and intuition. Her energy was drained. One night, Alexandra was startled awake to voices. She heard them say, "It is happening now. Get ready. I've got your back." Alexandra later learned that those voices were her spirits and ancestors. She re-engaged into her coaching business, became more visible in her community, and her business grew. Yet, the joyful moments were short-lived as she was still acquiescing to other people's opinions. This is good stuff because I've gone through all those things in the last 10 years. So we've got some good juicy stuff to talk about here. Alexandra allowed energy vampires and toxic people to work against her and destroy her self-esteem. She was teetering on a shaky foundation that eventually collapsed. That's that foundation that Brandon spoke about. So Alexandra then engaged in spiritual and energetic practices that helped form a new foundation, a foundation necessary for the life she wanted to live. She found this support through mentors, teachers, coaches, and elders. Her truest self emerged and she stepped into her success. Self-esteem, romantic partners, spirituality, health, a flourishing business. Alexandra can spot energy vampires and toxic people from a mile away and no longer get sucked into their games. Bravo. Today, Alexandra works she works with women who want that same success and love in their lives. She is a coach, Black mentor, and teacher of spiritual foundations. She is helping lead the G-Fest that takes place starting next week. So Alexandra Loves, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. Thank you for being
here. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is a great way to spend, delivering these messages is a great way to spend a morning. And I enjoyed what both you and Brandon, you said.
Yes.
Brandon, we're sharing this morning. These are all important lessons to be, with your spiritual work, also the empowerment, also the how you develop your skill and being able to weave it all together is important work.
Yeah, thank you. All righty. Well, let's dig into your story. But first, let's play that welcoming theme. All righty. Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show before, Alexandra?
No, but what's really interesting about that is I had an African American studies teacher in college who loved American marching band music, like old school classics like that. And every time he's this big black man, you stand in front of the classroom, and often we would walk into the room. So I guess I have been greeted by it before, because often we would walk into the room and he'd be blasting it, and he'd have a whole anecdotal story telling us about the era from which this music came from in the United States to teach us African American history based on the song. So it actually brings me back to college days.
Well, very good. That was the Washington Post March. It was written in the late 1800s. And then Glenn Miller from the big band era, he was the one who had, made like a hit song out of that in the 1940s. And the version that I play is similar to that big band version. But John Philip Sousa was the person who wrote all that march music for America. And every high school marching band plays that type of music. And so in America, we grow up with that kind of music. So anyway, well, welcome to the show. You've got a lot to say about many things, but I just wanted to ask a little bit of question about your background, if that's okay. You said that you were born in Saudi Arabia. I'm guessing your parents were from the African continent. Is that correct?
No, my parents are Creole from the South. They're from New Orleans.
So
Yeah.
So they were somehow stationed or expats living over there.
They're expatriates living in Saudi Arabia. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. So in some ways I'm from there, but I'm not from there. And in some ways I'm from here, but I'm not from here.
Yeah. So then when you from the bio that I read, you find yourself living here, and there's these what you called societal norms or societal expectations, and here you are, a young woman, and you're, something's not resonating with those, and it's causing confusion. And, how did you, the fact that you had self-awareness about it, and probably looking back on it, you have self-awareness about it, but how did that awakening occur for you?
Well, I'll tell you the very clear story experience that I had, and I tell this story, and that is I got to boarding school. Now I had traveled to the United States. We came almost once a year. I grew up in a privileged way where we travel the world 2-3 times a year because where we lived, and also in Saudi Arabia there's lots of holidays. So our holidays followed the Muslim holidays, whether you're Muslim or not. So there's just we have lots of chunks of time off. And so sometimes we come to the United States, but this is the first time I was living in the United States when I went to boarding school. And in the first 3 days, I think it was in the first week, my counselor said, you need to join the Black Student Union. And I said, why? He said, because you're Black. And it was the first time that someone had given me that label so clearly. And I energetically and felt this like shackle that went across my neck. I just felt a stoppage, and I was like, what does that, because it meant something. Standing on this land in this United States, this was in Massachusetts, hearing that really, really landed on me. I was the first time away from home as a student. I was away from home. I was in an unfamiliar place. I was already, I had a couple friends at that point already, but I was also experiencing this, it was a segregated school. So I was kind of like, what is going on? What is going on in this country? Like, I didn't understand what was going on in the States. And then to hear that, I just felt like, whoa, this identity means something that I don't know if I'm really aligned with, that I don't know if I want to recognize as real for me. And so that was sort of it was an awakening, and it was also sort of the seed of a really long struggle and racial identity crisis for me.
Thank you. That's this is a conversation that I'm not familiar with having. So I really appreciate that we can have this conversation. I grew up in a part of Pennsylvania that was predominantly white, and yet there were other portions of there were portions of the city where African Americans lived, and so there was definitely this separateness that occurred, and I didn't think a lot about it, but you did think about it, or it was like something put into you. So anyway, I'm glad that we're going to have this conversation, and I've heard you talk about it before on some of the other interviews, and you have a different perspective on, or at least a different way of thinking about it, which offers more of a solution than the conversation that's currently going on. And
yeah, a lot of the conversation I see when it comes to voting and activism, like mainstream activism, the way that people seem to be, that we see in our social media a lot, it just didn't work for me. I'm not in this for the fight. I'm not in this for, we are in a war, and we are in a spiritual war and a psychological war, but I'm not in it to fight my fellow man and woman. I'm not here to take other people down. I don't understand this thing we see a lot in politics, and the way people engage with politics on any subject, not just race, but on any subject. And that is I stand on this person's shoulders, the eye for an eye, this is better than the other way. If you make one mistake, you're canceled, all of that. This is, race. The way I look at race is it's an abomination of nature. The way, sorry, I should say it this way. The way I look at the way we experience race and the structures around race that were created in the way we experience it right now is an abomination to nature. Because the way it was created was that Black people of color are inhuman on bottom and white people are on top. And no matter where you stand in that structure, we all are screwed. We're all screwed by this. You were saying that you grew up in Pennsylvania and you noticed that Black people were living in other communities, but you didn't have to think about it. And stay with me on this, Steve, okay? That is an example of white supremacism. It does not mean that you or your family is white supremacist. Doesn't mean you're consciously white. White supremacism is a structure of this country. It's a structure. It's a condition. I call racism and white supremacism conditions, diseases. It's in our country. It's what we're conditioned to. You not having to think about it is a setup. Because the thing is, if people were allowed to see what was really going on and engage with it, we wouldn't be in this situation. I think that if people could really look at it and see the redlining that's going on in neighborhoods that keeps Black people out, that keeps them from having the resources that keeps them, continues to try to oppress. If you had been able to, and I know a lot of people I work with and people that are my friends, had they been able to be in a system that says, oh, look at this, we need to fix this, then we wouldn't be here. But white supremacism, which is injected into our system, keeps it so that we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We don't look at it. We don't need to. It's not part of our culture to do that.
When I was 22, I left Pennsylvania and I went to California, the Bay Area, San Jose, and I was suddenly surrounded in a very diverse group of people, and the huge Asian populations, huge populations from Mexico, people of all diversities, and I remember, because of the conditioning, I initially was noticing different people, and again, nothing wrong with noticing, except that I found that I was spending too much time noticing and not enough time just actually living. And at some point, it was a good thing. I kind of went, you know what, I've got to stop noticing, because it's really just people here. And if you're going to spend all your time noticing, then you're standing in some kind of judgment, or you're standing in, a separateness. And as I've in the last 10 years, as my own spiritual awakening has actually happened, I realized that the connectedness of all of us, and that is the most important thing, and energetically how we are all connected. And so anyway, I just I'm glad that you threw it out there, because it's an important topic, and it's fresh in everybody's mind right now.
It's fresh, and I want to say that there are nuances to the concept you're talking about, right? So there's this idea, right, that we're all one, we're all human beings, and that we have all these differences. And yes, it's good to notice these differences and appreciate them and celebrate them, but also remember that because of our differences, we live in a system that means different things because of our differences. And then also we want to remember that we don't want to and I'm not saying you, I'm saying, I'm saying to like whoever is listening and might be getting this message, we also don't want to undercut some things in how we relate to each other, and in our conditioning and in our structures. We don't want to undercut those things by just saying I see us all as the same, because we don't all get treated as the same. We don't all have the same experience. And some of us, depending on what the subject we're talking about, sit in a place of privileges, and some of us in a place where we are working against oppressions and manipulations. And so there's nuances there in how we are relating to each other, the celebration of differences, the understanding that we are one human race, but also understanding that we get treated differently. And when we're saying, when we're expressing these things, and how we're expressing these things, and to whom.
Yeah. Well, I'm just grateful that you're here today, and we're beginning, you're helping me to get more clear on my voice, so that I can, I can be the person that I want to be and grow into. Mm-hmm. And that is one of more compassion and forgiveness and awareness. And so this is an important thing.
Yeah. I appreciate that you're on the journey. And I also appreciate that you are amplifying your voice in that, because I feel like one of the things I see in activism right now is a lot of people saying, white people shut up. And I understand where that comes from. But I don't, it's not my way. I do believe that there again are times when there are situations where I'm like, white people, just take a step back for a minute, because it's not your time to speak. This is somewhere where somebody of color needs to be amplified. However, I really don't appreciate this whole idea that there's this blanket thing of white people need to sit down and shut up, because the truth is that there are going to be people, Steve, that look just like you, who are never going to listen to me. They're going to be people who relate to you, who are scared to interact with a Black man or a Mexican man. And so it's important for you to be going through this evolution and to be talking about this evolution, because there are other white men, other white people who are going to look at you and go, oh, if he can do it, then I can be emboldened. I can have the courage. Maybe there are people who will listen to amplified Black voices in the future. But it's important for white people to be teaching each other in these times too, and learning when that's appropriate.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's shift a little bit towards more of the spirituality side of it, because that's where you're, that's like where you are focused these days. And so you're this young woman, you started into a coaching business at a young age. And I heard the interview with Debbie G yesterday, and I know you're in your late 30s, and I'm in my early 60s. So we're generationally a little bit different that way. But I'm thinking, I didn't like become even aware of an awakening until I was about 51, 52 years old.
Wow.
And I was thinking, wow, she's Alexandra had this experience, in her 20s, and now has grown into her 30s. So,
Yeah.
So you're struggling though, and you're letting these toxic people, drain you and bring you down, and then you're beginning to have some success, and yet there's still an element of, the underlying, lack or loss. Oh, I know what you said. You said loss of self-esteem, self-confidence. And I went through that same thing, as I started to do my spiritual work. I went into it like gangbusters, and I got knocked down a peg or two pretty quickly because you didn't know what you didn't know when you started out. And then all of a sudden you become kind of aware of it. And, and there was a time when I really lost my confidence and had to kind of, make my way back into it. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I just maybe share a little bit about that time when you were, kind of in that yo-yo stage where you were sort of coming out of it, but you weren't really.
Yeah, I feel like awakening, there's an evolutionary process to awakening, because I feel like it's been happening for a long time, but there's some significant times when I can remember that I was like, whoa, like a big upgrade, upload, further pulling back the veil. And that time you're referring to in my life, I really just wanted so badly to really make something of myself, to really live aligned with my spirit. I had a better idea of who I was at that time, but I didn't know how. I just knew I wanted to, but I didn't know how that manifested in my day-to-day life. The goal was, and still is to be able to be fully and completely myself in every sense and everywhere I go. But I was still challenged with like the systems of working for other people and the systems of I don't totally know how to run this business, like the business part of the work that I do. But I'm going to follow what all these other people are saying that I should do. And so I got sucked into the world of coaching and spirituality, and there's a lot of great people in those worlds, but there's also, a lot of hooey. There's a lot of people that I'm just not aligned with, and systems that I'm not aligned with. But these systems was what I was involving myself with, because I thought that was the way that I was going to find some sort of independence. And so because I was not trying to practice these things that was not aligned, it was continuing to misalign me. It was continuing to be in disagreement with my spirit. And when you are in disagreement with your spirit, then you are susceptible to all the entities and all the behaviors and all the events in that can happen in your life that line up with that misalignment in your life. And so there was this opening for vampires to show up in my life. And I went through like a spiritual doctoral program in dealing with vampires.
So I in the work that I've done, I've heard of the term energy vampires, but for someone who maybe hasn't, go ahead and define what an energy vampire is.
An energy vampire is someone who sucks away your energy by any means necessary. So it can be from someone who's just around you. Sometimes it's just a mismatch. Sometimes it's not even that they are a vampire. It's just that the combination of you and that person is just like whatever the balance is, they're just sucking out your energy. Sometimes it's someone who that is how they go through life, that very vampirically, they're constantly gaslighting, deflecting, moving goalposts, devaluing your emotions. Sometimes you're hanging out with somebody who's super depressive, and there's nothing wrong with somebody being in a depression, but during that phase of their life, all they can do, they might be just taking from your energy. And the sort of the result of the experience is that you are drained, you are fatigued, lots of symptoms that people might recognize as PTSD, breakdowns, but basically is somebody just like a vampire is just sucking all your energy and all your light out. And I also want to point out that it takes a lot for me to like start labeling somebody as a vampire in my life, because I know that we can sometimes be vampiric to each other. So we can sometimes be in our friendship if we're drawing more than what we can draw a lot from a friendship or interaction and sort of drain somebody with our energy. It doesn't mean we are a vampire. It just means that we're being vampiric in that time. This is part of our conditioning in the United States is to sort of colonize. We're always sort of, if we're awake, we're trying to move away from those types of conditionings within ourselves. So I do want to say that it takes a lot for me to be like, dude, this person is a vampire to me. Like, no, because I know that is sometimes a imbalance that happens within relationships that you can be in. And I have done that before. And I'm so grateful that I have friends to be like, dude, you are taking up too much of my energy and space right now. I'm like, okay, let me recalibrate and step back.
Yeah, it comes down to ultimately knowing who you are so that you can set appropriate boundaries to keep these people at bay. And you said that in your bio that I read, it said that you can spot people that are doing that a mile away. And
yes.
Yeah,
because of the practice of the skill, because I was with so many, I noticed certain commonalities. For me specifically, when I'm okay, if you're sensitive, if you have a lot of light, if you're awake, if you are someone who's willing to look at your own shadows and your own toxicities and blockages, you're going to find, if you keep going, you're going to find a lot of light. Your light is going to be showing because you're doing this work. You're starting to be closer to, some people call it being closer to God, or, however you look at it, you're going to start to be closer to your spirit, and living in that way. It means you're going to have a lot of light. You're going to be illuminating, and there's going to be people around you that are not going to like that. There's going to be a lot of people who you attract that are awesome and love it and are aligned, but also there's going to be people who you'll start attracting all. And you might attract people who want what you have, and maybe people who are jealous, envious, because they think they can't get it themselves. And so I did notice for myself, there was a pattern of a lot of the vampires I experienced were patterns of men who were interested in me that weren't getting anything from me and willing to try to ruin all of my resources by any means necessary. So I had just a series of those. And in my practice of who are these people? What are they doing? What are the tactics, right? What are the things they were saying? I would hear some of the same sentences in a row from same arrangement of sentences in a row said by different people who didn't know each other. And then what is happening to me? What does it feel like on the inside? Why am I fatigued? Is this PTSD? I started really asking a lot of questions and actually recording things down. I started getting scripts, things I say when I hear these manipulative sentences, and started noticing the reaction. I'm like, okay, I know what this is now. I know what it looks like when it comes at me. And because of that practice for so long, because again, I got a PhD in vampires. After some years, and I went through this for years. It wasn't just like, one or two. And then I was at the end of my 20s. It was like a big chunk of my life. Now, when I see that energy coming towards me, this sort of manipulative energy, this, narcissistic energy, and I see consistency in that, then I'm like, oh, in every sentence in this conversation, or every energetic interaction in this conversation, I'm feeling like this person is looking for a place to shunt me for my energy. I'm like, okay, I know who this is. I know who you are. And then my boundaries, I practice, I give people a lot of grace too, because it can't be to go through life as someone who's always looking to feed off of others' energy, it's a painful life to live.
Yeah.
So I try to get out as quickly as possible, as compassionately as possible, and, clear boundary and move on.
We only have about 10 minutes left, and we have a couple things we have to get in. So we're going to, but the first thing I want to do is just pay you a compliment. I love that you can speak of things and without a judgment. And this was something that I had to learn, when I first began my work 10 years ago, where, it blew my mind when someone said there is no right and wrong, there is no good or bad. And I was like, everything was, polarized that way in my thinking. So I was judgmental about all that. And so I noticed the way you, in all of our conversation and some of the other conversations that you don't have, you make it okay for other people to have their ideas and their thinking. So you're doing it without judgment. And it's really unconditional love is what you're able to share with people. And I'm assuming this is where the Alexandra Loves comes from.
I appreciate you saying that. And really, I'm doing the best I can, just like everybody else is doing the best they can. And we all are in this world to build a new world together. And so I think that as I deal with my own battles within myself, I just learn more compassion for other people. And I make mistakes, and I do pass judgments. I make mistakes and everything myself, and I just keep being self-aware and reflective. And maybe I think that's maybe what people are attracted to in me as a teacher is and my teachers are that way too. They're self-reflective and self-aware, and they're always digging in. They have their own teachers, so I think that's important, and what you might be reflecting in. Yep. Loves comes from, I work with kids a lot, and one little kid one day started calling me Loves, and they started a little song. And so it stuck. And so I just kept the name Alexandra Loves when I started creating my own business.
So if someone goes to alexandraloves.com, and I've been there, you have coaching programs, you have some courses, online courses. How do you work with people? Who is your ideal client? And, how do you typically help the person who comes and asks for help?
Right. So usually, I work with all sorts of people, but usually I work with women, and I do spiritual guidance. That's like the first, people do deep dive sessions with me. That's usually where they start. It's either a deep dive session just generally on what it is. A lot of people are coming to me because they're in a big transition in their life. They really want deeper understanding. They want some sort of, I do a lot of, ancestral work. So they want to know more about, what is coming down, what sort of wisdom, how do they access certain types of wisdom that they need right there in that moment. And so these are their deep dives, and they're pretty intense sessions, but they keep serving somebody for a long period of time. It's not like, you have to keep coming back. They're pretty intense shifts in your life, these deep dive sessions. And then I also have Black Mentor deep dive sessions, because I have a lot of people who come to me. I just started noticing like this year, I was like, wow, I need to have a place for people who want to work specifically. They're called Black Mentor for White People Who Are Ready sessions, which are also deep dive sessions, but they're specifically on this topic, because I still hold that if you want to create anti-racist culture, if you want to deal with the conditions of racism, white supremacism, create unity, and understand your roles in this world, it has to be anchored into, you have to have some understanding of how this plays out in the legacy that's been left to you, and in your spirit, and your ancestors have to be involved. So I also have that. And then I teach classes, and I have my class that's open right now to anybody who is ready. It is called the Anti-Racist Journey, and that can be found on my website as well.
All righty. Well, good. Very good. So I would encourage anybody who feels like they would benefit from Alexandra's help to go to alexandraloves.com and check out some of the programs. And there's a way to contact you right there. So
Oh,
Yes.
Steve, and I just want to say too, for those of you who want to taste, to sort of see, maybe you're not ready for a full class. I will be teaching ancestral. I always get the name wrong too. Ancestral legacies, understanding racial roles and remedies at G-Fest that starts next week, October 16th to 18th. So that is something I'm very excited about. It is a summit, it is an online summit. It is. I don't think it's just for women, but it is like women oriented. So if you're a man and you're ready to go engage with the divine feminine, just know this is the space you're walking into. I'll be holding a BIPOC panel on activism, healing, and creating change. And that's something that you might be interested in, especially if you're sort of diving into these subjects and want guidance and sort of want to do it in a community type setting. So that also is something that is available to people. And I can actually even put the link for tickets for that in here as well.
So Michaela was on the show a couple of weeks ago and talked about it. And she mentioned that you are not just not just one of the speakers, but you've actually been involved with helping to organize some of it. So tell us a little bit about your role and what you've done to help Michaela. I know Michaela is the driving force behind all of it, but what are you doing to help out?
Michaela and Sydney have been holding this festival, throwing these things, especially online, are dealing with so many people, volunteers, talent, teachers. It's a lot of work, and they put a lot of heart and soul into it. And I want to acknowledge that this is a festival that is committed to having BIPOC voices. Not as a token, but as a real installment there, and we'll continue to do that. And that's honorable. I really appreciate it. I put together a panel, in partnership with G-Fest, a BIPOC panel on activism, healing, and creating change. And on that panel, we have Nikhila Badwa, Mira Michelle, Dima Mahmood, and Claudia Quintes. And these are women from all over the world, representing Hawaii and Jamaica. West Africa, Nubia, and the Andes, Peru. And we're talking about the different ways to engage in your own activism, what activism really is, how we can enter into it in a way that makes sense for us. Because as we know, activism doesn't look the same for everybody. Not everybody's going to go downtown and stand in front of cops and get tear gassed. Not everybody is going to be a community organizer. There's got to be different ways for people to engage with this, and we need all hands on deck. And we do need to take leads from the people who are affected in the most negative ways by this. And these are, the BIPOC people of the world. So I'm really excited about this panel that's coming up to share it with you. And all of these women are so powerful and unique in their own rights. And we represent the world. It's not just diversity from the United States, it's diversity from the whole world, because really all of what we're experiencing when it comes to race and these charged issues around how we interact with each other, depending on where we're from and what we look like, it's a global issue. And I think people are starting to see that more and more. So this is I'm really excited for this panel happening at G-Fest in a week and a half.
Coming up on the 16th to the 18th. So that's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And yes. I know Michaela shared that the event, like the pre-event that they had in June, had like 4,000 online participants. This is huge. So, yes. Definitely participate. And I'm glad to hear you say that, the bold men of the world are able to buy a ticket, but know what they are going to get themselves into.
Yes.
I've been getting more involved and started the show, I'm noticing there's lots and lots of coaches and events that are designed for women. And it's like, of course, there's been events for men, but I'm like wondering, hey, what's wrong with us men? Aren't we allowed to participate too? So anyway, it's all good. And I love what you're doing.
There's nothing wrong with you men. It is that in any power structure, when you have people that are on the bottom of the power structure, it is important for them to have gathering spaces, and important for those gathering spaces for them to amplify their voices, because in so many of the power structures, our voices are not, and we have to fight harder. And so when men are invited to this, it's the same if we have a black space. If we have a black space and we start to invite people who are not black into those spaces, we have to remember and understand that those spaces are created for them and that we are guests in those spaces. And so if you come, Steve Weber, just remember there's a lot for you to learn, but you are a guest in the space.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I love. I am a believer that we need equal seats at the table. We need, women. We need the feminine power. We need the masculine power, and we need them to interact in a healthy, productive way and make all of society a better place. And that's happening. That is really happening right now. So this is an exciting time when the world is awakening and things are starting to shift. It feels like an awful lot of our structures are broken, and yet at the same time, there's an opportunity that sits in that brokenness for something new to evolve. And so I appreciate leaders like you who are stepping forward and daring to have the conversation in a new and healthy way. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please come back again. Good luck with the summit next week. If anybody needs some coaching or just help or just some of the free materials that Alexandra offers, go to alexandraloves.com. So, yes. So we'll wrap up today's show. Thank you for joining us. Any last words that you want to share with the American Gumption Morning Show audience?
Just always look for the truth behind the truth, and don't be scared of what it is that you're faced with. Or I wouldn't say if you are scared, then keep going anyway, because we're all born specifically at this time, and we all are attracted to what we are supposed to be attracted to create ourselves and to create a new world. So whatever it is that's challenging you right now, just keep going and know that you have the power to deal with it, to engage with it, to change it, to be an important part of what is created because of what you put your intention on. Well,
thank you so much. You are you are doing that. You are living your life, and I'm sure you said it. It's a constant evolving thing. It doesn't just happen, but it keeps growing in little pieces and little pieces, and then big pieces, and then little pieces and little pieces, and so it's an exciting journey that we're all on. So I hope that you'll come back again and visit us. There's there's a rumor that you might be part of spirituality going wild someday. We'll say nothing more than that. It's just a rumor, but we'll see what happens. So
yes.
Well, good. Well, good luck with the G Fest. I hope your panel and your participation is the success that you want it to be.
Yes, thank you.
Get your tickets there at gfest.life. And visit Alexandra Loves at her website, alexandraloves.com. So thank you again for joining us. Please come again.
Thank you. Bye, love.
All righty. Well, that was Alexandra Loves. We appreciate that she took the time to join us this morning. It was a great conversation. I wasn't 100% sure how we were going to talk about all the different things that we ended up talking about, but it came out beautifully. I appreciate that she took the lead on this and made it comfortable for me to have these conversations that I frankly haven't had before. So I'm very, very grateful.